can record. I've had set up the permissions so that anybody can record. So down here, right, I got a security button right here, and I've said require set everybody can record. I think I've got it. Is anybody else recording so I know for sure?
It says you need permission.
Okay. So if anybody asks permission, I'll go ahead and do that. Start recording local files. I don't know what that means. So, okay, Tommy, allow recording. There we go. Maybe we'll get this thing figured out before I'm too old to remember it.
I'm recording.
So, yeah, several of you are. So, Selena, glad to have you with us. I hope y'all find this.
Can you hear me this week, Eric?
I can hear somebody. Yes, sir. There's a lot of noise on somebody's end.
Crashing.
I don't want to mute everybody and have you raise your hand, but I want everybody to be cognizant of the fact that if you've got anything going on in the background, someone yelling, a dog barking, TV on, whatever, that we pick that up, and it can be distracting sometimes. So let's just make sure we're all being respectful of everybody else. So if you're not worried, I mean, if you've got something going on and you're worried about it, just go ahead and turn it down to a low volume or whatever that needs to be done. So I just want to make sure if you're tuning in, you get the full value and the full experience that we're doing.
Can you give me permission to record?
Ask for it, and I can click on that. So if you ask for recording down on your
Ask for recording.
Yep, down where it says record, you should click on that.
Okay.
There you go, Robert. I'm going to allow you to record. You asked me a question about who was my sponsor or who was my contact earlier, and I didn't know who you were talking about because I said something about doing a show, and you said, "Who's your contact?"
Oh.
I didn't know who you were. I didn't know who you were asking for. Sorry. All right, I got 103 on my computer, so I'm going to start. Couple things before we get started. This is my finished minion. I'm going to do two or three more of these because I got them cut out. And this one says, hang on to it. This guy says, I'm with stupid, and he's got arrows pointing to the other people. And then both of these guys, this one says me too, and this one says me too, and they're both misspelled. So let me get those closer too so you can see. I'm using professional lighting that I picked up years ago. I may have to put up some diffusers for it, but we'll try it and see how this goes right now.
It's
anyway,
overlighted.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's overlighted.
Yep, I know. I've got two big main lights over here, and short of getting up and spending 10 minutes putting the diffusers on and moving them back, I don't want to do that and waste the time on it. So I'll adjust that when we get free time.
Okay.
So hopefully you got the paper that I loaded onto my website with the pattern on it. Where is it? This one here. Hopefully you were able to get that. It shows you what we're going to be doing, and then tells you the pattern. You can download that pattern. That pattern should be the right size that we're going to do. I think it's, yeah, it looks about the right size. So hopefully you were able to download that or print it off and then cut out the pattern, and you should end up with something that looks like this. I'm gonna move the lights so they're not shining right on me and see if that helps. Okay, Peter? Let's see if that makes a little bit of difference. Go back to the minions. You can see those now, right?
Now I can read it.
That's better?
Yes.
Okay. And so there's the pattern that we started with.
Yeah, I've got that.
And so just cutting them out, and full disclosure, I'm not a very good drawer. I'm not this ultra creative person. I'm intrigued by people like Dave Stetson, even Sarah Barraclaw, who comes up with these wonderful projects and over and over and over. I might have 5 or 6 good ones a year, but I don't have all these great projects. So sometimes I steal ideas. You heard that old thing about good artists borrow ideas and great artists steal them. So anyway, I typed in to Google Images, moose ornament wearing a Santa hat. And so there's a lot of these, and I took this one, modified it a little bit, and then sized it up and sized it down. But here's some of the other choices we came up with as well.
I thought I saw this coming by on Pinterest.
Thought you saw what?
Those images on Pinterest.
Yeah, probably Google Images, Pinterest, wherever I can find them. I mean, you do Google Images, then you can click on the image, and it'll take you where it's loaded. Anyway, I just looked at moose cartoons rather than sit here and draw. And even doing that, my box is full of drawings that I made because I wanted to change this. I wanted to make the ball smaller. I wanted to make the horns a little bit more shapely and rounded rather than pointed. I did a lot of changes over it, and I came up with the one that I did come up with. And I think it'll turn out pretty good because I've done several of these, and I really like them. I was doing them at our carving meeting yesterday, and people were like, "Oh, can I have one of those? Can I do that?" And I said, "Well, you know what? Let me get through the class, and then we'll figure out if I can do it as a class for our club." So we don't have a meeting this month because we have our business meeting and then we have a carving class after that, and we don't have that. We have our Christmas party the 14th. So I probably will do it on the 21st if anybody in our club is watching. I'll do that on the 21st and make sure that we have some of these available. So, and I've carved a few of them. One of them I made even smaller, and this one I really like the size of it, but it's hard to hold on to. It's not very big, and so while you're carving here, your fingers are all around it, and it drops out of your hand because it's so small. So I sized it up a little bit, and I've been working on a couple of them. I'm not done with them, but I've been working on a couple of them as I carve along. Okay, any questions, any comments, concerns?
Nope.
Stories anybody want to tell before we get started? All right, I'm going to move on. I've got the ones that I've carved, and you can see those. You see those on the website, and if you printed that downloaded paper, you can see them on there too. I'll show you how I carve them, and I'm going to say this over and over and over and over and over. The more you know me, the more you'll hear it. I'm not here to teach you how to carve. I'm assuming showing up, you've got tools, you've done this, you know how to carve. I'm showing you how I do a particular project. And you may or may not do it the same way. You may do it completely differently. You may decide to extend the head longer, shorter, whatever. Feel free. I don't have any copyright on this. I stole the image from Pinterest or whatever, and then I changed a little bit here and there. So I don't own a copyright and don't own the rights to this enough to where I would tell you you can't change it. Feel free to change it. As I said last week when we talked about this, we're also going to finish it off with some miniature lights. So I found a thing of miniature lights. They're not electronic or anything. They're just decorative pieces. And I found another set somewhere. I don't know where I got these. These are real kind of neat little things, and they're on a string. So we'll wrap the string around the body. These I know I got from, don't shoot me because I went to Hobby Lobby. I know some people really don't like Hobby Lobby, but sometimes they have stuff that nobody else does. This is that set of those. I'll hold that up so you can see it. It's a company called Derice. These are mini Christmas garland metallic bulbs. And I think they were about $3 or $4. So if you're going to do it for 25 grandkids, you're not going to spend a whole lot of money. I don't know if there's even the UPC code on there is so small you can't see it. It's there we go. I'll hold that there for a few seconds if anybody wants to write that down. 82676 02554. So sometimes you can order it by the UPC code if you get it off Amazon or somewhere else. Or feel free to use bigger ones, smaller ones, whatever you want. I'm doing a class. You remember when we were kids, we had those light strings that went around the Christmas tree, and they had these screw-in bulbs. They were all different colors, right? Red, orange, yellow, blue, green, whatever. I like these things, and in fact, I've seen people carve those, and so I have a class coming up. I want to say Monday, and I have another one on the 23rd where we're carving these C9 bulbs, is what they are, with a goofy face on them. I don't have any of them with me because I've got them on display at a couple places where I carve, and so I don't have any of them to show you. But you Google ornament, goofy face, light bulb, carving, whatever you want, and Pinterest, Google images, and they'll pop up. They're fairly easy to find. Having said that, I'm through talking for a little bit. If you're ready to carve, let's get started. If you want, say a few things before we do, or make a naked plug for your club, or whatever you want to do, I'll give you a few minutes to open that forum up and say what you want to say, and then we'll go ahead and carve. If anybody wants to.
Hey, Eric, it's Selena. I did a craft show. I do other types of woodworking, but Saturday I did a craft show and I sold two of my carved Santa head ornaments. So I was pretty excited.
Nice. Nice.
They weren't that great, but people liked them. So
we did a show this weekend. We have a local church. It's a Lutheran church in the north end of town. And a guy in our club used to belong there until he passed away. And when he passed away, he always participated in their Sons of Norway bazaar. They always have a bazaar first weekend of December. And so when Miles died, they asked me if I'd fill in. And I'm not Norwegian and I'm not part of the lodge, but they're glad to have us there. So my wife and I did it. And when we did the analysis later, I sold a big Viking. I make Vikings that are about 10 inches, 10 inches tall, various different sizes. I sold a Santa, and then everything else was smalls. So it's a small venue. There's only 10 vendors, and it's mostly the people of the Norwegian kind of a cultural background. So we didn't see a whole lot of people, but it's only 5 hours, and so we did pretty good in 5 hours. If it had been 10 hours, I don't know that we'd sold any more. But it was fun because I see the same people every year. And I have the same conversations with some people every year. And sometimes they remember and sometimes they forget. But we sold a lot of little stuff. So most of our stuff was $20, $30. Shelf sitters, Santa faces. I do a bunch of different ornaments, a truck and a tree, all kinds of a snowman icicle ornament. So we were glad to do that. I'm glad you were successful at yours. But, that's the thing. There's a couple of people that argued about the price, and I'm going, I'm not here to make a lot of money because it's hard to make money, a lot of it, carving. I'm here to make friends. I want to make sure these people come back every year, and even if they don't buy anything, hey, stop by and visit. Tell me how the kids are doing. How are the grandkids? That kind of stuff. I had one little girl. Her mom did a booth two booths down from us. This little girl, Amelia, she was just the cutest little thing. She came over. She had this high, squeaky voice, and she kept looking at all my gnomes. I must have had almost 24 gnomes out there. She looked at me and she pulled her hair out of her eyes. She goes, "You just don't understand how much I love gnomes." And her voice cracked when she did that. And so I made her a deal where if she bought one, I'd give her another one for free. She goes, "I only have $12. And I said, "Okay, so go see what your mom and dad can, give you pocket change, whatever. I'll sell you 2 of them." I think I had them on sale for $30 because they were, pretty good size and had a base on them. She came back and bought one with her dad, and then I gave her whichever one she wanted to do that. And she thought that was the greatest thing since sliced bread because mom had bought her one last year. And so now she's got 2 of her own. And so she was excited about that. So, but it's again, what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to build a community, and I'm trying to build a community with my customers, with my carving friends, with my neighbors, just so people realize there's a lot of ways to see art. This is just one of them, but come out and watch us and have a little bit of fun. And we're always invited people to our club too. Our club meets twice a week, and then we meet every week as well. But anyway, let's get started because you don't want to hear me pontificate about the philosophy of carving and the zen of it and this and that. So, all right. I'm going to show you where I started. Here's, okay. I'm in the process of making these boards that have step 0 to step 6, and I don't have many of them, but I've got a couple of them up there I'll pull out a little bit later. I wanted to do one of these where I had the steps going along, and we had a death in the family this weekend, and so I've been running around trying to help my wife do things and take care of stuff. So I didn't have the logical steps. I was going to have them laid out here on the table so you could see them. Here's step 1. We're going to go from step 1 to step 2. This is what we're going to do. Step 2 to step 3. I'll try to do that, and I'm in the process of taking all my classes and having a list of steps. So here's what it is with a picture. Here's the wood you need to do in this pattern, and here's the steps you do it, and then here's the tools you need them. I'm in the process of doing that with every one of my classes, but I've got about 50 or 60, and so that's a lot of work, and I'm not going to get them all done tomorrow. So I'll do them as we go along. But anyway, here's where I start. I'm going to draw in the main. Go ahead.
A kind of practice stick.
Yes, that's exactly what.
You said you have images.
I have a couple. Let me show you one real quick. So I'm doing them. They look like this. They have, they have the beginning step down here. Here's the cutout piece of wood. And then here's the first step, second step, third step, fourth step, and finally the step and finished. I wanted to do that for these moose, and I just didn't get the chance with you don't realize how much you have to take care of when a loved one passes away. You know, all the death certificates and boxing up all their stuff and all kinds of stuff like that. So it's just been real busy for us. So we feel like we're running backwards sometimes, but it's okay. Anyway, I like to take and draw the major anatomy. And so here I've drawn both of the antlers here, and I've drawn the hat, and there's the ball. Once we get those kind of sized in, that gives us the shape of the head, which gives us the shape of the bottom of the head and the hat as well. So what I like to do on these, let me get my finger protector on. One of the things I like to do, here's the tools I'm using. I'm going to start off with a soft V. This is an OCC soft V. You can see that it's a V, but it's not a real sharp V. I also use 1 or 2 different fishtail gouges. This one is a flex cut. And for those of you that like flex cut, there's a reason I like flex cut. It has flexibility on the metal. And so that helps you carve a little bit better. My stew buys are not quite as flexible because they're very thick and very heavy and they maintain their edge a long time. And then I have a shorter one. This one from Flex Cut is 7/8. I think it's called the FR400 if you're looking for that one. This one is Drake. I've had this one for a long time, probably when I first started carving. It's 3/8. I will also use a variety of V tools. Here's one from Drake that I'll use. It's very sharp. This one holds its edge very, very well. And so it's one of my go-tos. I have a Pinewood Forge, the Harley Repsol big knife that I use. This carving I don't use a big knife on this carving very much because it's mostly tools. And then I use a small V tool. This one's about 1/4 inch. And I think it's about a 60. I don't know for sure. Looking at that small, I can't really calculate the angles. It could be a 45, but it could be a 60 as well. Anyway, first thing I'm going to do, let me switch cameras real quick. No, that's not what I wanted to do. Alt in. Come on. And we'll do it on. We'll do it this way. So, okay, orient myself, make sure which camera I'm at. And so what I want to do is I start with the horns, antlers, whatever you want to call them. And so I'm going to put a big line right here on one side of the head, and I'm going to put another line on the other side of the head. And so if you need to, make sure you mark that out. I'm going to mark it here. I want a big line right there. And I want a big line right there, understanding that I'm also going to round up here at the top, so I would take some of that off. Soft V is great if you're going to carve a lot, especially if you're outlining things. because unlike a regular V, this doesn't make a really sharp line. And so if I make a mistake, I haven't dug in too deeply with a soft V, I can always come back and rearrange that line. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start. That camera is really washed out, so let's see what another one looks like. That one looks better, doesn't it? There we go.
Yes.
So what I want to do, I want to take that soft gouge, and I just want to go up these two lines right here, this one and this one, and that separates one horn and one horn, or antlers. I think moose have antlers, but anyway, I've not been a hunter for a long time, so whether they're horns or antlers, it's the things that stick out of their head, whatever you want to call them. And I'm just going deep and deep and deep and deep and deep. I'm just going to make sure every time I carve that out, and sometimes it's a little easier if you hold it on the table. That way you're not holding it in your hand, and you can carve a little better. Okay, do that on both sides of the hat. Hey, I heard they were going to do a new Western. They're going to call it The Sun. And I think they called it The Sun because it's set in the West. Wasn't a very good joke, was it? I'll come up with a better one.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah, I know, right? I didn't get hired for my joke telling. Oh, one other tool I want to show you that I'm going to use a lot today too. So I can grab the right one. This one I've had for quite a while. This is a big spoon gouge kind of thing. And so let's see if we get it out in here. You can see what it is, how scoop it is, has an angle to it. This is the OCC, and this is what I use on the antlers. Hard to see what that is.
Beavercraft.
Yep. Either way, and you can do that either way you want, because what I want to do is now I want to take the horns and I want to make them thinner. And so if I look at the horns, let me grab a marker so I can make a strong mark. If I look at the side of the horns, I'm going to bring the horn this way. It's going to be, I don't know if you can see that.
Hollow.
The horn is got a curve to it on the inside. So I'm going to carve from the outside down into the curve and then curve to the head with that rounded gouge that I'm going to use. And then I'll thin out the back as well, because we're looking at the back here. I will thin off the back so that it tapers as well. Tapers is the word I was looking for and I couldn't remember. Anyway, for this one that I'm carving, I'm going to make a sharp stop cut right here using whatever knife you use. Just make a stop cut right in the bottom of that groove that you cut on both sides of that horn. So you're separating the horn and the hat with this groove. And if you got to make that cut 4, 5, 6 times, that's okay. I'm going to start with the fishtail gouge because I just want to start getting some of that wood out. I got to be careful. I nicked myself yesterday at the club meeting, and the stupid thing, the wood broke and the knife went right through my glove, and I've got this little nick right here, and it doesn't even hurt. I mean, I can, poke all over it, but boy, I couldn't get that thing stopped bleeding. Is that just an old age thing? Somebody that's experienced that? Somebody else? I'm sorry?
Are you using blood thinners?
No, I don't have any reason to use blood thinners. But you're
lucky you missed your flexor tendon.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, on my other hand, I had carpal tunnel surgery earlier this year, and boy, it's so much better than it was. But yeah, it just nicked. I mean, it was like it was going sideways and just hit the skin, and it stopped bleeding in about 2 minutes. But it's like, wow, okay.
Eric, how deep?
probably 2 millimeters at the most. You know, it wasn't very deep at all.
Oh no,
See
I
how-
mean, how deep I have to carve.
See, well, I'm not done yet, but right here is one of the horns. I'm getting one of the antlers. I'm getting there in fairly thin in there. Okay, so once I start getting that depth in there, then I want to switch to this big one, this big rounded one. This is a little harder to carve with, but I'm going to come in and I'll go straight down and then curve. So what I'm doing is I'm leaving this outside edge of this horn, of this can't stop calling it horn. Leaving the outside edge of these antlers as the outside point, because the back of the horn, the antlers are going to come this way, and then the inside of the antlers is going to come that way. So I'm going to come in here with this, whatever. I mean, I've got 2 or 3 tools that I could use for this that have a deep rounded profile. Gouge of some sort, number 11, number 9, whatever it is. But I like this one because it takes off a lot of wood at one time. Did I tell you how much I like this project? It's just a neat little project, and everybody who sees it thinks it's pretty cute. They've all lined up to say, "Hey, I want one of those." So you know how family is; they want everything for free, and we do it for them, don't we? You get an idea of which way I'm going. The horn is starting to get slimmer there and curved in. Maybe
Yes,
I'll
I
get this.
know what you mean.
Okay,
Yes.
so go in as deep as you want to, but know that the thinner you make this, the weaker it is. And as you move around the carving, if you grip it like this and you start to carve somewhere else, if this piece is real thin, it may break off.
Now we'll leave it thick.
I'm going to leave it a little bit thick, but not very thick and not very thin. About half. I'm going to lose less than
Strong
half
enough.
of it. You
Strong
see how
enough.
much? Yep. You see how much I've taken in there?
Yeah.
Okay. So now what I want to do now, I'm going to take my knife and I'm just going to thin that this way. So what I want to do is carve in. So from the head's right here. I want to carve so that I'm making this thin up here. So we're going to have some kind of an arch there. So I'm taking off this back part of the wood on the horn, on the antler. Taking this stuff off. And the grain runs, I didn't talk about grain on this. I carved one where the grain ran this way. And it was really it broke off a lot. So I decided the grain run the length of it, because essentially when you're carving and you go to cut out wood, you want the grain of the wood to run the longest dimension that you've got. So if this is the longest one, I want that to be the way the grain is growing. But if this is longer, then I want to have the grain go that way. So I want to make sure that the grain is easy to work with. And so when I'm doing this one, I'm going to carve with the grain. The grain is running up and down, so I'm going to carve with that. And I just need a few of those corners off, just like that. I don't need to take off a lot. Again, if you make it too thin while you're working with it, we have a tendency to grab that wood, and sometimes it will break off on you. That's why we have glue within arm's reach of us whenever we're carving, if you're like me. I'm going to do that down the back of it, and then I'm going to come back in here with that fishtail gouge, and I want to round the back up to the top. So here's the back of the carving back here. Here's the front up here. I want to carve over to that. So I'm just going to take off a little bit of this wood here. And it doesn't matter whether you use a fishtail gouge or a knife. It's easy to do it with a knife until you get to the other side. Fishtail gouge is kind of universal the way you use it. But this one is going to be just thinning to the front of it. So I'm basically coming up and then curving over. And again, I'm still going to leave a hefty amount of that stuff still there. I don't want to take it all off because I don't want to get too thin. If you're one of those carvers who uses a bench, I want to say it's a bench dog or whatever it's called. It's a tray that has a backstop and a front that anchors on the front, and so you can push this right up against the edge, and you can carve by just holding part of it. Very useful tool. I don't use mine very much. Yay.
Look,
You got one?
Yeah. Can you
Oh,
see it?
Peter, hold that. Let me pin you, Peter.
Jack has one too.
So there you go. So one end of that, the one in his left hand, that in your left hand, right? That's the one that goes
Yeah.
over the edge of the bench.
One on
Oh,
top
right.
of the bench, one underneath.
Jack too. Jack, let me show yours. There you go. You folks see that? If you ever have a chance to make one of those and try it out, it's good for this flat stuff. So for these little flat ornaments where you don't really want to hold them in your hand or smaller, or you don't want to roll it around, you put it right in the corner and or up against the edge, and you can really hold it in place very securely. All right.
Yep. And on top, I made some hardwood, so that doesn't wear out so easy.
Right. Yeah, because if you bang your tool into that a lot, you'll end up needing to replace the edge of it. All right, whatever you do to one side, this is a symmetrical kind of carving. Do that to the other side. So take a few minutes to make that stop cut on one side of the antlers, and then do the same thing to the other. This project may not take some of us very long to do, and so we'll talk a little bit later before you leave. If you're going to leave early, make sure you stay around long enough for us to talk about the next dates in January and the next project. I got an idea for the next project. I think it might appeal to some of you. I hope. If not, there's no reason coming, I guess, if you don't like the project. Anyway. And again, be thinking about projects you'd like for me to do, and be thinking about whether we want to make them long projects where we meet 5, 6 times, whatever, for a project, or whether we want to keep these simple and just make them 1 or 2 meetings. I don't want you to have to sit there and look at a carving for weeks while we work on it for 1 day for 2 hours every week, or every other week in the case of the schedule right now. So I want you to think about what can I do to make this a more sustaining, fun learning opportunity for anybody who wants to show up, whether you're beginner or intermediate.
I would like to make a bolo tie.
Bolo tie.
Yes.
So what would the subject be?
A cowboy hat.
I was just talking to my friend yesterday, and I've done a lot of bolo ties.
Yeah, I've seen your videos about bolo tie. Yeah.
So I've done quite a bit of them, and sometimes they're easy to sell and sometimes they're hard to get rid of because there are so many carvers out there that do them for free and give them away. So Guy Nelson and I have had a lot of chats about this. He's down in Utah, and you might see his bolo tie videos on YouTube as well. But he's done several thousand. I think I'm up to about 400. And that's just some of them. The rest of them are hanging over there. The thing with bolo ties, I don't know how it is in Netherlands, but here in America, unless you're in the West, you don't see bolo ties very often. So you wonder how much of an interest there is for people to do one. But we could certainly do one. I can show you how to set that up, and they're a lot of fun to make because when you wear them, people remember, yeah, my grandfather used to wear one. Or out here in the West, what we have, especially here in Idaho, we're called the gem state. So you can go out and find all kinds of gems, and a lot of people, they've got the tools to come back and shine them up and make cabochons or cabs out of them, and you wear those. And so you see them with, string ties or leather ties, and then the cabs are done with where you shine up and polish up the metal. And we have a type of stone out here called picture jasper, where jasper, in the veining in the jasper looks like a picture of mountains and sunset. And so we have a lot of those going on. The bolos that I've made were geared mostly towards cowboys and scouts. That doesn't mean that I'm only going to do those, and I haven't done a few in a while because I've got I've got 120 of them still here. I'm going to put a few on my Etsy page, and I might load a few on eBay as well. But sorry, I was pausing for a moment to see if the waiting room had anybody that wanted to be admitted, and I don't see anybody in there. Okay, so again, we're gonna thin out those antlers, at least right now. That's the first two steps. If I was laying this out and giving you the step number one would have been draw. Draw the things on there that you want to remove or leave, keep. The second thing would be to start to shape it with the gross anatomy. So we took that soft V, and we made these cuts right here and right here. And then we took the big scooper, my wife calls it the big scoopy thing. And that big scoopy thing we use to give the antlers some shape. And I'm going to leave mine fairly thick. You can see how I haven't removed much of this 1-inch wood, which is a 7/8, 3/4, whatever. But I haven't removed much of that. The next thing I like to do is work on this ball. But what I also like to do is take these corners off. So I'm going to take just a few minutes, and I'm going to take my fishtail gouge. I'm going to use the smaller one because I'm going to be making smaller cuts here. Fishtail gouge, and I'm just going to start at the bottom of the hat, and I'm going to take off this edge at about a 45-degree angle. In other words, basically what I'm doing is with this cut, I'm just rounding the head over, rounding the hat over. And so I'm just coming right up that side and removing that edge. Okay, this one, I'm not sure why there's no light shining directly on it. I'm not sure why it's so white, so I'm not going to use that one at all. Anyway, back to where we were before I started to fart around a little bit. Okay, so do that to both sides. All you're doing basically is rounding some of the hat. We're not done with it. We'll come back to it. Sorry, I was off camera. I'm just trying to basically shape that hat to where if I had a center line down the middle of the head, right marker, I want to round from down here to that hat, and then from down here to that line, and down here to that line. All I'm doing is just taking off wood. I'm getting ready to do a little few details. If I haven't said it before, let me say it again. I appreciate y'all being here. I love teaching, and I enjoy being able to learn something from my students as well, because I always learn something new. And I always see somebody that does it in a different way, and sometimes I go, I'm gonna have to try that. That looks pretty good. So I appreciate you being here. It'd be nice if we could all be in the same room, but travel being what it is, cost being what it is, and other issues like traveling vehicle and distances and all that. Once I get that done, I'm going to come back with my V tool, and I'm just going to clean that line up. Whether it's a big V tool or a little, you can use just the edge of the big one, or you can use the full tang of the small one. One of the things I've tried to practice as I get older in carving, and I mean older as in carving more, is to try to carve clean. Well, that's not always easy to do. And so one of the things I do when I'm done is I take a small V, I have a couple small Vs, and I go anytime there's a transition, and right here between the head and the horn and the hat, there's a transition. I'm going to come in here with a little V tool, and I'm just going to clean up. And you'd be surprised at how much you take care of, because you're already in that space. You're already at that corner. Go ahead and take your V tool, have that handy, that little V tool. This is a small V tool. Like I said, I think it's a 60-degree number, 1/4 inch. It's not very big. I have a smaller one, but I don't use that much because the wings are not very tall, and it's easy to get that one buried. And when you bury your V-tool, the wing gets under the wood, and all it does is tear. So I'm rounding that part of the head. What I want to do now is come back here to am I going too fast for anybody? I need to give you time to catch up.
I'm still with the antlers.
Still with the antlers? We can wait.
Yeah.
We can take our time. We're not in a big hurry. Like I say, I think we can do this in a couple of hours if we wanted to. Do I need to give you a sneak preview of the next class?
Yeah.
Peter, you're the only one that's going to talk today, huh? You and Selena? I did a carving for a friend of mine years ago. She was a librarian, and she loved bears. Well, that was an easy thing to combine. The librarian was a librarian. I know, play on words, right? Anyway,
Yeah.
I made a carving of a bear wearing a suit. And this one I mounted on a base. Well, then I was thinking, well, okay, what's going to be our next project to do? And then I thought, why don't we do a librarian where the librarian has, here's another one with a tie. The librarian has a suit on, and then he may have a book tucked in here, or a book tucked in here, or a book tucked in between his legs. And then the whole diorama, the whole scene is books everywhere. Maybe we do a backdrop of a shelf that kind of goes around him, and there's books everywhere. You can see how you could make this elaborate. But I have a carving.
Nice.
I have a carving. Hang on just a second.
You could make the base a book.
So I found this carving in an estate sale, and it has been dropped several times because they had glued it back together. And so don't look too critically at it, but it's a guy holding a bunch of books. I'm gonna have to hold it together because I didn't glue it back together. I figured I'm just gonna enjoy the carving itself. But it looks like this. So books don't want to stay on there, but he's standing up like this, and he's got his hands holding a stack of books, somewhat like this. It's European, I think, is what it is, because it's very flat plane, very nice. You can get an idea of the books there.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether we want to take the bear and make him holding books, or if we just want to put him in a scene where there's books. Well, my friend really enjoyed it. So I think she still displays it on her librarian table because she's still teaching. But anyway, think about something like that. I like the idea of the librarian, but I've got these where I've carved them with a chicken head. I had a friend up in Salem, Oregon, sorry, Dave Disselbrett. His stuff is still floating around on the internet, and he passed away a few years back. But he used to do all these figures with these animals wearing clothes, kind of anthropomorphizing animals. Here's one that I did 2020. But I like this one. It's a real simple a moose head in a suit, and you put his arms in his pockets, and it's an easy, I don't want to say easy, for some people it wouldn't be, but it's a fairly simple carving. But what do you think about that for our next project after this one, where we do the bear first and then do a diorama, if you want to stick around for that?
That sounds cool.
That sounds
I like
right.
it. Female bear.
Like it? Sorry, Tommy?
A female bear.
Yeah, we'll put a dress on her, a little lipstick. That makes a female, doesn't it?
My librarian was female. That's why I was asking. I did one for
Right.
her when she retired, and she just loved it.
Really?
It wasn't a bear, but it was one of Brian Owens' classes.
Right.
The only reason I took it is because he was doing a librarian.
Oh, gotcha. So yeah, that one I think I did back in 2010, 2011, whatever, and I haven't seen it since I gave it to her. Yeah, I've done several of those things. All right, here we are. We've got the head shaped. And so we've got roughly, my finger's out of the way. We got roughly the shape of the head. We're going to round that because I don't want it so pointed up here. But anyway, the next thing we're going to do is outline this ball. And if you'll see, that ball is really, really thick. So what we need to do is take back some of that wood. How you do that is entirely up to you. One of the ways I do it is I start right here. And, I'm going to have to get rid of that camera and get another one. I'm going to start right up here where the ball is, and I'm just carving down. So I'm moving the plane of where that ball is going to be. I'm going to go about halfway back on this head. So if I were to draw it in there, about halfway back on this head, the ball is going to be that far back on the head.
Okay.
So however you take off that wood, remember to leave some here because the fur, the brim of the hat has fur going all the way over, tucked into that, like this. Upside down again. So we've got to leave enough wood to get back in there and enough wood to leave that curvature right there. You with me so far?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna go right where that line is, and I'm gonna cut it off with a V tool so that I know where it's at. And everything forward of that V tool cut is gonna be gone. And what's behind the V tool cut is the ball. And that'll allow me to tuck a little bit of that red underneath those antlers. So I took a V tool and cut down in there. I'm going to take a fishtail gouge and just nibble it away. You're going cross grain, so it'll have a tendency to resist you. And then be careful. The more you add, the more it'll want to slip on you. So be careful. We don't need injuries or broken carvings. We got glue, but you know.
The hospital, they use CA glue too.
I'm sure they do. I've never had to do that on a cut. I never had one in carving. I've never had one that big. As you can see from my glove, I'm missing a few digits, and that wasn't going to be. They ain't enough with super glue to take care of that. They couldn't exactly glue my finger back on and call it good. So anyway, I've got it cut out, but it's got an odd shape to it. So I want to shape that ball so that it looks like a ball. So I'm just going to trim off the flat part of it. It's cross grain, so be careful. I'm tucking it back into the cut that I made on the saw. So I've got that ball right back in there. And then I'll relieve a little bit of wood over here and slim that hat going down into there. And then I'll come back and I'll round a little bit more of that ball. But again, the ball it can be fragile depending on how you cut it. So the more you work around it and touch it, the more tendency you may have to break it off. Before we're done, if you're not able to come to the next one, or we decide to carry on to the next one, I'll tell you what paints I use, what colors, because I mix a lot of paint. There's very rarely that I use paint directly from the bottle. I'll mix a lot of colors to get what I'm looking for. And if you look on the web to see what a moose looks like, you could do everything from light yellow to dark black. So I've seen them in a lot of different colors. First time I saw a moose, I had traveled out to Yellowstone. My wife and I had been married for probably about a year. We transferred back to the United States because my son was born in Germany. And we transferred back to the United States and then went visiting with her family up Yellowstone. We get to one of the hotels in the park, and I saw this moose out in the field, and it was munching away. And I had a couple different cameras. I dabbled in photography at the time, and I stepped out away from a tree and got a picture. And that click from 50 yards or 80 yards away, whatever it was enough to set that moose come running. I ducked in a grove of trees. These three trees are growing up right together. And once he lost sight of me, or she, whatever it was, once they lost sight of me, they lost interest. But I was like, here's my family over here yelling at me, get away, get away. I'm going, just an overgrown cow. That's the first one I'd ever seen. So no big deal, but
Eric, can you show the start of the bowl again one time?
right there. Does that help?
So the bowl is on the back side of the antler.
Well, I haven't seen the antler. See how thick it is? That antler is going to fade down. That antler is going to fade. Let me show you.
So we're carving that down to the.
Yep, here's the leading edge, the front edge of that antler, and it's actually going to come back down here and be almost. You see how thin it would be at the bottom of that?
Yes.
That's about the same thickness as all the way up here that I'm going to make out of this horn, but I'm going to leave that till the end because I really don't want to make these thin. There's such a big plane here that they're easily broken when the grain is going this way. It's real easy to break that off. So I'm going to make that a whole lot thinner later, but I'm not going to do that now. So it looks like it's going to come underneath it, but I'm not necessarily going to do that just yet.
Okay.
That makes sense, Robert? I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, I got a real bad cold. So I'm just wondering, so we go from the top of the ball down towards that ear. Okay, gotcha. Seeing it.
Does that help?
Yes, sir.
Can you see it in there? So I'll take quite a bit of it off. Let me get something to point with. I've taken quite a bit of it off on the front end. And so here's the ball. And you can see how much we've taken off, about half of it. And then as we round, we'll take off a quarter of it, I guess, by the time you round it and add the details. And then the antler will be tucked in behind that. Does that make sense? How I explain that?
Yes, sir.
All right. So now we've rounded the head. Okay. I'm going to leave that alone for a little bit because what we're going to work on is the bottom of that hat. So what we need to now draw, if we're drawing it, is where's this hat go and what does it do to the edge out here and over here as well? And then if these lines are okay, you can go ahead and cut them in. So what you have to realize is what you've done here is the hat. Whatever the top of a moose's head looks like, it's fairly round and bony. But now I've got to have enough room down here for the eyes plain, the big nose sticking out, and the nostrils, and then we'll put a mouth on there, kind of a goofy mouth. So I've got to have plenty of room for that. Okay, so go ahead and draw the top and the bottom of the brim of the hat, that fluffy stuff that Santa wears on his hat. Draw it all the way across the plane. So go from the far on one side to far on the other side. And then we're going to use a V tool to outline those. I'm going to take my V tool. And when I say a V tool, what I want the V tool to be the V of the tool to be right on that line. I'm essentially going to erase the line with the bottom of that V. So I should not have, when I do this, I shouldn't have any more black on that line because I've removed all of that line. Okay, that's the top of that brim. I want to do the same thing with the bottom. Feel free to make that as wide as you want. If you don't want to do eyes, make that even thicker like a no-see-em moose. Although by the time we get done, I think the way we do eyes on this one is kind of a cartoonish kind of thing. It'll be fun to do. So we've cut out both of these lines for the brim. And then I'm going to come back with my knife and I'm going to make a stop cut right in the bottom of that groove. I want my knife to be perpendicular, straight up. I don't want it wavering off to the side. And I don't want to dig in there and dig the tip in. I want to keep the tip in, carve all the way across, stop. Tip in, perpendicular, all the way across into that groove. Stay in that groove if you like it. If not, now's the time to change it. And then we'll make that stop cut right in the bottom of that groove. You got me? both grooves.
Ah,
Is that a good ah or a bad ah?
I broke his antler.
See what I told you? You got glue handy or?
Yeah, I glue it on later.
Well, that's why I always have 3 or 4 sitting here that I can work on because I don't want to worry about breaking one and then having to sit there until I can run out in the garage and do it. You don't want to sit here watch a video of me in another room while I'm carving. So
Eric,
once
did
you're
you
done
take
with
those
that, then
cuts all the way around?
I'm sorry.
Sorry?
Did you take the stop cut all the way around to the ball?
I went from the ball to the bottom of the antler on the other side. I just went straight across. So it goes from here. Here's the ball. See the ball there? It goes from that ball all the way over here and over to the other side. Because what's going to happen is I still have the flop over, whatever that's called, where the top of the hat comes up, and then that piece comes down and goes to that's not in the right spot. Let me take it off of there. So what I want is that pointed part of the hat. It's going to come up here like this. For some reason I end up with a pin that don't write. And it's come back over like this. That's gonna be tucked in backwards. That's gonna be the flop over part right here, and it's gonna go all the way down to that ball. Does that make sense?
And
Okay.
is on the
But-
other side, is the white fur gonna go all the way to the back of the ornament?
Goes right all the way to the back of this one. I'm gonna stop. We're gonna keep the back flat, other than the ornaments, the horns, antlers. But yeah, that line here's that fluffy part of the hat right here, all the way around here, and all the way here to where that top of the hat's gonna be, top of the ball. You with me?
Thanks.
All right, now, real quick, what we want to do is we've got really sharp corners on the bottom of the head. So what I want to do, I've got my center line. So what I want to do is take and round this over. And it's hard to say to round something when you're going to make straight cuts, but we're going to round it by making straight cuts. So I'm holding the antler like this in my hand. So the horns are toward the front of my fingers. And I'm just going to come down right on the edge and make 2 or 3 really, really aggressive cuts. I'm trying to get that 45-degree angle to go all the way up through the hat, but I've already done the hat one. So I'm going to do that to both sides because I've got square edges right here and I got square edges right here, and I want to take those off. Did you know we've been carving for an hour now? It's 1:59 where I live. Woot! Look at how far we've come.
21:59.
1:59 in Boise. 1:59 p.m. Now, when you take those corners off, that means you've removed some of your lines that you may want to go back in and recreate. And so on that fluff around the hat, I want to come back and I want to draw those lines again. Here's the line at the top of that hat to the bottom of that antler. And here's the other one to the bottom of that antler as well. Now, here's what you got. Over on this top one right here where the fold over is, the fold over, which you may not have drawn on yet, the fold over is going to go all the way to the ball. So in other words, this top of that hat's going to tuck up under that fold over right there. This is the part of the hat that folds over. You know what I mean when I say that, or do I need to go get a Santa hat to illustrate what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be back in a sec. 2 or 3. So here's what I'm talking about. This fold over part right here, let me get it figured out, right here where it folds over, I'm going to have a little shadow right there. That little shadow is right here.
Yep.
And so the hat folds over, and I've got this other side. I got this ball here. So that ball is on his hat, and back here is the antlers, and there's the hat. And so that's what we're going to be doing right here. We're going to cut. We've made our stop cut all the way across on that line. We're going to since we cut off those edges, we want to do that again. And then we're going to cut in this part right here. We're going to go in real deep right there to show this mark, and then we're going to kind of come down and follow it all the way down to the ball. Got it?
Yep.
Tell me if I didn't explain something well enough. I'm used to what we call in education multimodalities. Some kids learn by showing, some kids learn by doing, some kids learn by listening. So if I haven't shown it very well to you, let me know and I'll do what I can to find another way to do it. But that's what we're going to do next. I'm going to switch cameras. Okay.
Okay.
This one does really well up close. This one does really good. Where you at? Far away. I lost this camera for some reason. Anyway, we'll switch to this one. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to make these cuts across here, and then we're going to make that cut right there. I use my knife real easily, and I just first go in here and cut the fold over, the short part of the fold over, and I go in deep and I make about 4 or 5 of those cuts down in that fold over. And then I'm going to come down here on this long piece and I'm going to make 1 or 2 same depth, same line cuts. 1 down to the ball. And I'm going to do 1 more down to the ball. And then what I'm going to do then is take out that piece right there and take out that fold right there. So I flip mine upside down so I have a little bit more control. And I'm just going to go right here where that deep cut is, and I just take that triangular chip out of there. Take that triangular chip out of there, and then I take this sliver out of this one, the side where that fold over comes down to the ball. Deepen that cut if you need to make that shadow go up under the hat. So sometimes it takes me a couple, 2 or 3 tries because I get it one and I like it, and then I might cut something and I don't like it. But then what you need to do, because you cut off this line right here, you got to put it back in so you know where it goes. So that line right here for the top of that furry part of the hat, and then come back and cut it again. Stop cut in there. Stop cut on the bottom. Stop cut back here on these other edges because we took that edge off earlier, remember? Stop cut here. Next step I'm going to do, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to relieve these cuts. So this is the top of the hat, the top part above the brim. And then I'm going to take off some of this, and right through here is going to be the eye sockets. And so I'm going to take my fishtail gouge, and my small one, and I'm just going to nibble the hat down to that stop cut that we made on the top of the brim. So all I'm doing is taking this where the hat is and carving down to it to separate the hat from that brim. I don't need to take off much. I just need to take off enough to show that that brim goes all the way around. Okay. Now I'm going to do the same thing at the top, just because I want to or the bottom. Sorry, I want to separate this bottom line now. I don't need to take off much, but don't worry about that, because the part under the bottom of the hat, there's going to be a lot of it come off here in just a little bit. Okay, clean up time for a little bit. I'm going to take a smaller knife. I'm going to get a smaller blade knife, and I just want to clean up the cuts that I've made that I don't want to clean up with my V tool. So take a few minutes to go around, deepen, strengthen, make better your cuts where there's a transition. So between the head and the hat, or the hat and the head, or the ball and the hat, wherever. Deepen this cut right here where the fold over comes down. I'm going to go all the way down to the ball, and I'm going to reverse that and undercut that slice out there. So I'm cleaning that up because that was pretty choppy back in there. So that allows me to clean it up as I'm going. So that way I don't have to spend an hour cleaning up a 30-minute carving, or whatever, how long it took me to do it. And then now I'm going to see where the hat looks like. Here's this fold over piece that goes down from the hat down to the ball. I want to carve those areas too. So just shape that ball just a little bit more, because we left it wasn't quite rounded. So we're going to add some more cuts to make it look like it's rounded. You know, the thing about carving, I used to be a painter, and I still do a little bit of painting. The thing you've got to remember is it is almost impossible to recreate in wood something in nature. Okay, yeah, somebody does a realistic looking bird. It's still not realistic looking. There's still things there that aren't. And so what we have to do as painters or as artists, we have to recreate enough of it to tell the story. So if I'm doing a painting and I want to paint a tree, I cannot physically sit there and paint the 1.5 million leaves on that tree. There's no way. And then all the seeds. I have to give it up to give the impression. Carving is the same way. I cannot carve everything on this thing to make it look like a real moose with a Santa hat on. I mean, how ridiculous is that in nature? You're never going to see that in nature. A moose wearing a Santa hat. I don't know how tameable they are so that you could do that, but it's not something you're going to see in nature. So you have a little bit of freedom in terms of the complexity and the details, but you want enough details so that they don't look at your moose and say, "Oh, nice doggy." I've had that happen with a cat I did, and they said, "Oh, that's a pretty dog." Huh? So anyway. We are at the point where everything else is primarily cleanup and details. You've got the shape of it. If you were to slap some paint right here for eyes and give it 2 nostrils and a smile, somebody would say that's a moose. The overall shape is there. We're going to add more to it, but this is at least where we're going to stand back for a minute and just take a look at what we're doing. How does it look? What do you think? Where do you think you put more details in? Where would you have less details? Where would you put more time cleaning up? Where would you put more lines? That kind of thing. So what I want to do, Peter, go ahead.
Painters will do that too. We'll step back. Show
If you're doing landscape painting, yes. If you're doing abstract or whatever, all bets are off. So painters do that too. Yeah, we look at things and we realize what do I need to do to get my point across, my thought? Because I could certainly take a painting and spend 1,000 hours on it, and it wouldn't sell for any more than it would if I spent 100 hours on it. Because there's just enough, there's at some point, you get to what we call the point of diminishing returns. I've done enough details to get to that point. I could add a lot more, but why would I add that many more? It's not going to show up in the bottom line. Just saying. All right, that hat has a funny crook to it up here at the top, and this bottom part right here, or the side part, comes out and goes around. So what I want to do is I want to shape the top, and I want to shape these edges. Seems like I lost my light or something. I want to shape these edges right here. And so I'm going to take my fishtail gouge, the smaller one, and I'm going to carve that side of the head just a little bit on the left, just to round that head down. And then I'm going to take a little bit more off over here because I have that flop over, the fold over piece that I want to shape it right. So I'm carving to the antler, and then I'm taking it off, and then I'm carving a little more to the antler, and all I'm doing is trying to move that whole line of that hat back a little bit more so that it doesn't look quite so bulky. I'm not sure if you can tell, but again, that's one of those details that I cut out right here. I took out more over here on the hat side so that it moved it back a little bit. That allows me then to come back here at the bottom of that antler and take off just enough so it looks like it's tucked behind. And that'll allow me to take a little more of that wood off right there. I'm just going to cut it in and cut it under and take more off to the hat side, and then go back up under that cut and deepen that shadow just by taking a sliver back up under there.
Which camera are you using, Eric?
I'm using the one right above where I'm carving. This is the, I don't know, it doesn't tell me. So if I move to the other one, see, this is great. I should just show it here.
Yeah.
Probably make it up.
And get rid of all those other cameras I got. All that money spent, right? So this one doesn't show up very well either. So we'll go back to that one.
One of them had been showing up really good, and all of a sudden it got blurry. So.
I know, that was this one to my right, one where the wire's hanging off right there. That one's doing really well earlier. And this one does well when it's far away. It's got good detail, but it's light. It's I got the lights turned away from me, and it's still too light in here.
That still looks better.
And the other one was close up. You can see it, but you got to get real close.
Yeah.
And so when you can't carve that because my hand would cover everything. So anyway, what I was talking about was trying to hang on to my stuff. I was carving right here and undercutting that part right there because it goes down to the ball. Now it looks like the ball and that part of the hat are attached, whereas it didn't look earlier. And so what we're going to be doing now is shaping this brim here. I took a little bit of more wood over here, and I took a little bit more wood over here. Now we're going to shape the top of that hat because that point right there doesn't look right. Okay. So give you a couple minutes to catch up with whatever stray cuts you got there. Give me a minute to get a drink. I've been talking for an hour and 15 minutes and I'm dry.
Get a Heineken.
Do what?
Get a Heineken.
I try to make it a policy not to carve and drink at the same time.
Okay.
So I've already lost a couple fingers. I don't need to be in any danger of losing any more. If I did that, I'd have to get somebody to carve for me while I narrate. And that wouldn't probably be very good. All right. Is that enough cleanup time? We'll move on. Okay, not hearing anything. I'm going to move on. So what I'm going to do now is I want to take my knife. I am using a smaller knife than I did earlier. What I'm going to do is clean up these tines, the parts of these points on the
Antler.
antler are tines. And so you must be very, very careful when doing this, because the thinner you make these, the easier they're going to come off, the easier they're going to break off. And we're going to be carving against the grain, so it's not going to be a whole lot of fun when you break something off, unless you have, lots of glue. I'm going to first work by thinning it out. So I'm carving to all the parts of the carving, all the parts of my ornament where I have not only edges that have corners, but where I have saw marks. I want to take off those saw marks. I'm just cleaning up a little bit. There's a few little lines I've drawn on here that I want to clean, that I want to take off, because the lines are distracting. Once you made your cut, whatever you have left over from that line is distracting. Okay.
Yes.
What I'm then going to do is get in here between the tines, and I want to carve down on one part of the tine and up on the other. So there's one of these tines. Let me see what we can do. Nope, not what I wanted. Come here. Okay.
Eric,
Yes.
have you ever tried to carve like Lindgren from the CCA?
Well, I'm not in the. Who?
He hosts the CCA show.
Blake Lunsford or
Yeah,
Dave
Blake
Stinson?
Lunsford. He carves.
I've talked to Blake a lot, but
He carves with the gouges towards him.
yes, I can't do that. Have tried. And just a little side note here, when I was 16, I broke my left wrist, and when I was 19, I broke my right wrist. And the wrist is a very complex joint with all the rows of bones you have in there. They've never healed. So I don't have a lot of flexibility on my wrists. Most people can bend 90 degrees. I can't. So being able to take a gouge and carve like this, I don't get a lot of bending. There's not a lot of, I only go 1 or 2 inches, and that's all. Whereas the rest of them can go a full 5 or 6 inches. I can't do that. So I wish I could. I can't. All right, this is where we're at. What we want to do next, now all of a sudden I move the lights away. I can't figure this out. So the next thing I want to do is I want to take the sharp edges off of this brim right here, this thing that goes around the hat. Take the sharp edges off, and I just lay the knife down fairly flat. So when I say fairly flat, I mean at an angle that allows me to come in here and just slide it along where I need to trim off some wood. I don't need to take off much, but all I'm doing is just trying to take off the edges and take off the corners. And I'm off the corner, I can't see. Dang it. So you see all those edges, I'm just rounding them because I'm going to come back here with a tool and give it that furry look. So just coming along here and making sure those edges are all rounded. When I bought these cameras last year, they told me these were some of the best cameras you could get. And I'm going, well, I'm going to have to go back and get my money back. All right. We were up here talking about ornaments, about the tines on the antlers. So what I'm going to do is anytime I see saw marks, I know I want to take those off. And these are really flat. See how flat they are? And what I want to do is take off that flat part there and then carve in between them and clean off the messes. So all of that chewed up wood I want to get rid of. Okay, there's one tine. On the inside of that, I'm gonna carve just a little bit down in a curved motion. I want to curve from here to there carefully, and then cut that wood off. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the next one, carve down, and on that one it's going to want to oppose you, and so then you'll have to carve up. Because if you carve down, it's easy to split that wood, and there goes your antlers. So I'm going to carve up and curve at the top, and it takes off that saw mark right there. On the next one, I can go down on the inside because I have a little bit more wood and it's a different angle. Then I come back in an angle on the next tine, and I can clean that up in the middle. And then the last one is over here next to the head, and I want to clean that off before I shape that head. So I go down to that one and back up on the other one. So basically what I've done is I've given these tines a little more shape. And then if you want them narrower, if you know you're not going to play around with them and break them, come back here and thin them from the front, the back rather, and then thin a little bit from the front. So as I carve down into that antler again, I'm taking off a little bit of the tine at the top. It's giving it more shape. Now you can see how thin that is, especially when I come back here and take off the last of the saw marks.
You're gone. Oh. Yep.
So in between those tines is where I've done all the cleanup in there. Same thing on the other side. Take a minute or two to do that other side. Thin it down from the back. Take off the saw marks. We're at 2 minutes and 23 seconds, so we're getting right along.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Sometimes it flies when you're not having fun too. Depends on what you're doing, I guess. Like days at work, sometimes they fly by even though you're not very happy at being at work. So I am taping this. It says recording, so I am taping this. So I'll figure out when I get a chance in the next day or two to load that onto YouTube for those who want to roll it backwards, roll it forwards, whatever you want to do, or tell other people about it. Spread the word.
I know somebody here in the Netherlands who would like to join.
Yeah, well, give them the passcode and they can find it right there. Nobody had trouble signing on this morning, did they?
Nope. Only thing I did, I bought a webcam
Right.
for the PC.
Nice.
I
All right.
had a little hard time catching on.
Was it because with the sign-in code or what?
No, it was, I think, because my computer wasn't used for, I'm AFI. I haven't used my computer for Zoom conference in ages, so I had to start a new account.
Where are you from, Avi?
I live in Loveland, Colorado,
Okay, gotcha.
but I only live here. I've lived here for 48 years.
Right, gotcha.
You probably
Pretty
guessed that I'm not from here.
Well, you know, all of us have some kind of accent, don't we?
Yeah, I'm a member on Spaceship Earth. I think that's the most important thing.
Part of the human race. I got you.
I hope so.
Yeah, me too. Sometimes I wake up and I look at myself in the mirror going, "Oh my God, what did I turn into?" All right, I want to clear off this top of this hat. This is real pointed right here. And so all I'm going to do is carve down and round. I'm rounding the front top. I'm rounding the front top here. This part in the front. And I'm going to round up here at this top because I want to bring this point right here down. So I'm just going to carve down to the antlers. It's kind of cross grained, but it's protected because there's a lot of wood there. And so I'm just carving down. Is that a good picture of being able to see it? And then come in here and cut that off. Be careful, it's going to want to split off on you. It's going to want to split off on you if you're not careful. So again, I'm just trimming off some of those saw marks and giving the hat a little bit of a roundedness to it. And again, I'm just trying to get a little bit of a rounding to it. You may have to roll your knife a little bit. You may have to come back at it with a V-tool. But I'm just rounding a little bit on that hat right up here. And then when I'm done doing that, I want to round from the front to the back, just round it over a little bit. So I make it look like it's less pronounced right there, and I've got to take off a little bit more too. Come on. I hear somebody blowing their chips, and I'm reminded of a contest I did years ago. I was at a carving event, and at the end of the first day, they announced a carving contest, and they said, "We don't care what you carve, but the first time you go and blow away your chips, you're disqualified." And I thought, that's a weird rule. And the next thing I know, everybody is forgetting about the rule, and they blow on their carving, and nope, they come tap them on the shoulder, you're disqualified. So I don't know what they were trying to make, but it was funny how many of us blow our chips away.
Discipline.
Yeah, everything is discipline to some degree. You gotta be who we're supposed to be. All right, let's work on the face a little bit. If you want to continue working on the rest of it, you can, but I want to show you how to do that face. So if you decide to carve, you don't have to wait until the next meeting. We're going to do 230, 229. So here's what I got. I've got that a pencil. I've got that look to it right there. That's what I've got. Get my thumb out of the way. So somewhere around here, I don't want a big eye socket because I want to leave room for big nostrils, and I want to leave room for a mouth down here. And so here is the bottom of my eye. Probably can't see that pencil, can you? Here's the bottom of that eye socket. So what I'm going to do up here is I'm going to take not one this big, but one about this big. It's a little smaller, but if you need one even smaller than that, you can use one about this size. This is a number 9, and it looks like it's about a 1/2 inch, maybe 3/8. But all I'm going to do is go straight across. I want to stay under the hat, and I want to stay above that line. And I'm just going to go straight across the carving, and I'm making a eye mound. Making a place to put the eyes. And these are going to be cartoon eyes, so don't worry about it being in the right spot, perfect, whatever. All you're creating is that mound, right, that groove right there. So here's the bottom of the hat right here. Here's that groove right there. Deepen that as much as you need to or as much as you want to. Carry that all the way over to the edge of the face if you like. We're going to shape a little bit more of it here in a little bit. But all I'm doing, separating the head right here. This is the bottom of the hat. So separate the head from the hat, and then leave room for there to be eye sockets back there. I like to make this a little bit deeper because really, in reality, a moose has a long, narrow head. So the further I push that back, that eye socket, the longer it's going to look. There's these principles of perspective that you pick up the more you do art. So if you make a, let me think of a good example to do that. If you're doing a carving, you're doing a carving like one of these guys right here, and you realize the arms look too short, the thinner the arm you make, the longer it looks. So if I were to take this arm and take half a quarter off here and another quarter off there, all of a sudden that arm looks a whole lot longer the skinnier it is. Now that's just a play on perspective. It's really only what it is. It is what it is, and it's what you made it. But the reality is, it looks that way to the observer. And as they look at it, they realize, okay, especially if they saw it before, and then you thinned it down, they begin to realize, yeah, that kind of makes sense. So anyway, we've got the face in there, and we've got the rounded of the body, or the rounded of the mouth. I'm going to just play around with it for a few more minutes because I'm just eyeballing it as I go to see how deep I can logically do it and still get my point across. And I think that's about as deep as I want to go. Can you see how deep I went? Right there. Not very much, huh? Anyway, you get an idea right there. Take your pencil and draw in some eyes. When I say drawing eyes, what I'm looking at, you find a scrap piece of paper here. All kinds of eyes you can do on a carving. So you want some cartoon eyes. You can do cartoon eyes. You want to do droopy looking ones. I mean, you can have some fun with eyes. On these, I'm going to keep them simple. I want them connected. I don't want two eyes far apart from each other. So here's the bottom of the line that I would draw. Here's my center line. Connect them together. Or you can do eyes like this. So you've got black pupil right there, another one right there. Your choice on how you want to do eyes on your moose. I'm going to draw mine from the line there. I'm not going to make them real big, but I'm going to make them like the last one I just did. I'm doing this upside down, so give me a little. Ignore that black line across the top. We're gonna ignore that here in a minute. Let me take it off so you get a better idea of what I'm doing here. Okay. And all I'm going to do is take a V tool and go out on the outside of those. So I use a small V tool. And I'm going to start right in the corner. I'm going to go up, or right in the top, in the middle. I'm going to go up and then follow that line down and then curve out at the bottom. So it's got a little bit of separation between the eye socket and the face mound. Once I carve those in, I'm going to carve across the bottom and take that other line out. And I've got the eyes drawn in there. Too much light. There it is. Okay. The other thing I want to put in there, 2 big nostrils. Now, I've seen some drawings where they shape them like a kidney. No, I don't need to do that. But he's going to have 2 big nostrils. Lights. Me and lights have a love-hate relationship.
Okay.
And then I'm going to put a mouth in. So I'm going to go out here to the outside of the face, and I'm going to make.
What's up, sweetie?
I'm going to make 1 mark right here. Get closer. 1 mark right here at the outside of the face, and do another one in the same place on the other side. I just made 2 marks on it. And then I'm going to connect those with a kind of a wavy line. Actually, I want to move this out a little bit more. Both of them. I'm doing them too close and I couldn't see what I was doing. Those 2 lines there, and I'm going to just really goofy line. Don't make it very straight, and get as close to the bottom of this edge of the face. Get as close to the bottom as the edge of the face as you can.
Camera is off focus, Eric.
Yeah, I know. It's the camera I'm using on that one. So this line right here, and another one over there, same way, and then connect that with just kind of a goofy, jaggy line. It doesn't have to be. Put some waves on it. And then we're going to carve that out. First, though, we want to carve those nostrils. And we've used a couple gouges. And so on this one, what you want to use a gouge. This is a number 9. It says number 9 on it. And it looks like it's only about 3 1/4 inch across. That'll fit right in those nostrils really well. Okay?
Yes.
So what I'm going to do, and this is where you're going to have to be really careful, because you're going to go from one side of the nostril halfway and then carve back halfway. And you're going to have to do that so that they match. So I'm going to go dig in, and I'm going to come back out, and I'm only going to go about halfway. It's really easy for that to slip and go all the way to the other end. So I've almost cut it through. I'm going to do this again. And I'm going to do it one more time if needed. So I end up with little squiggles in there. That's okay. That's the cleanup part, because you want to make sure this thing looks the way it's supposed to. So back and forth until you get those cuts to match. It's on this one right here. And so we're going to carve out the other side now. Same way, same exact thing. Make 1 cut up, 1 cut down, 1 cut up, 1 cut down. Go deep the first time you do it, because you want to establish where the outside of that thing is, and then go to the other one. Now, I was kind of hoping one broke on me so I could show you how to fix that. But if you break that off, if you break all the way through the upper part or the lower part, what you can do is take this surface down, this face surface down, and then that'll take care of the mistake you made. I'm then going to, and I'm almost done with this carving, I'm going to come to the side of the face. There's that one short cut I have. Make a deep incision right in there. Make the same deep incision over here. And you know what the great thing about this is? They don't even have to match. This one's a little bit lower than this one. It's got a lopsided grim. They don't have to match. You don't have to make a match. If you're worried about trying to make a stop cut all the way down near the bottom, do it with a V-tool. So take a small or a medium V-tool, start from the bottom is where I usually start, and I make sure this line is kind of wavy. And I remove that line that I drew in, and I just follow that line around for that mouth line. Okay. Then what I like to do is come in and I stop cut right in the bottom of that line. Just follow straight in. And what I'm going to do is then come in and I'm going to lay my knife down at a very sharp angle. So it's only going to be about 15 or 20 degrees. And I'm going to take off a sliver of wood between the upper lip and the bottom lip. It serves to move the back of the mouth or the bottom of the mouth. It serves to move it back. And then it just looks even goofier. So I'm just coming in here where I made the stop cut and cutting up to it, taking off that sliver. And then to clean up, you've got these saw marks here. You want to take those off. And around a little bit of the snout, that line we did right below the eyes, just round that snout a little bit. And this hard line right here, this hard edge right here, I want to take that off. So I'm just going to come in here at an angle. And I'm just making sure that there's no sharp edges right there. And this bad boy is almost done. The other choice you have to make, if you want to, is how do you make the pom-pom and the brim of the hat look puffy? Well, I take my gouge and I go in and out, in and out, in and out. And what it does is it makes a divot. You make enough of those divots and it looks like it's fur. It gives it just enough texture, just enough shape, so that the ball and the trim, the edge of the trim on the hat look like they're made out of fur. You can see that, boy. It's like these cameras get worse as the more you use them. So see that shape to that ball right there?
Yes.
Ish. Yeah, I know. There we go. Just give it some shape there. And I would do the same thing across the bottom of the hat as well. And then only thing you have left is clean up and paint at 2:44. Hour and 44 minutes. I don't know about you, but I like this. I kind of like this ornament. I like this carving project. I'm going to do several more because I got another show and I've got people that want ornaments. So
Really cute.
thank you. Not quite as cute as my penguin years ago, but
Eric, could you do the eyes one more time?
yes, I will. I'll draw them on since I've already carved them in there. So what I would do, let's see where I'm at. I drew a line across the bottom of the eye socket because that's what I want to sit the eyes on. You see that line?
Yes, sir.
And then I'm going to draw them. I need another marker that'll get down in that hole. And I want to draw them just like this. I'm going to start right here at the top, and I'm going to draw one slightly smaller than the other one and one slightly bigger. like that. And then when I paint them, I'm going to have eyes real over here, real close to each other.
Okay. Gotcha.
Just,
Thank you.
just cartoon goofy eyes. I'd love to see them when you got done with them. Share them if you'd like. Show off. Tell everybody about it. Let's see, we're done with December. So what are we going to do in January? Before we do that, any questions about this? Anything, any other things I can answer for you? Help you out with? Oh, one detail I like. I use a really small number 9. And right in the bottom of that nostril, all I want to do is go in and make another groove in the bottom of that nostril, and it just indents it a little bit more. So it's not the whole nostril, it's just a little bit taken out to make it look like there's depth to it. Because with that number 9, there's a limit to how far you could get in there. Number 9 3/8, I think is what it was. This will allow you to get down in there. And if you wanted to paint that deeper part black and the rest of it dark brown, it just gives a little more in-depth depth to that nostril. You can't see it in there.